Network, Jensen.
Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DX General Santos. DX General Santos. Una sa balita. Una sa balita. Musika o kalingawan. Mas tulong pinalakas. Radyo.
Tuna Exporters Multi-Purpose Cooperative. Tuna Exporters Multi-Purpose Cooperative. Niining panahona, lisod alang kanato ang mga nabuhi nga walay kasiguruhan. Hilabi na niining panahon sa krisis sa COVID-19. Busa ang ayan gayon nga magkasiguro kita sa atong paglahutay sa matag adlaw, inubanan sa mga pag-ampo ug sa tamang sa labawng makagagahon. Ang Tuna Exporters Multi-Purpose Cooperative 19 katuig na nga matinud-anong nag-amping sa tanang miyembro niini ana-ana sa mukaba 2,400 ka mga dedikado ug kuihan nga member owners ang kasamtangang malipayon na ginabuhi sa nagkalandaing kliyenteng kumpanya sa Temco. Pagpamatuod nga misubay gayud kini sa iyang misyon nga mohatag og di kalidad, epektibo ug kasaligan nga pagpanerbisyo sa tanang kliyente ingon man ang sustinableng panginabuhian alang sa tanan. Uban sa pag-uswag sa matag kinabuhi sa mga member owners, napatuman sa Temco ang iyang tumong nga makahatag og maayo, kasaligan ug matilid-anon nga pagpanerbisyo alang sa tanan niining giampingang kliyente. Busa igsuon aron kita makasiguro paninguhaa gayon nga magkapambyembro sa Tuna Exporters Multi-Purpose Cooperative. Temco, serbisyo at benepisyo para sa mga miyembro. Yan ang Temco.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DX General Santos.
This is CNN Philippines.
Is here 8 more areas added to the red list as health authorities confirm 2 Omicron variant cases in the country. Preparations underway in areas that may be directly hit by Typhoon Odette. And Stephen Curry is recognized as the NBA's best three-point shooter of all time. The Philippines joins the list of dozens of countries to report cases of the heavily mutated and highly transmissible Omicron variant. Health officials say all hands are on deck now in contact tracing, testing, and in ramping up vaccination. More from Caroline Bonquillo.
To check all possible close contacts of 2 incoming travelers from abroad infected with the highly transmissible Omicron variant and reach them as soon as possible. The health department found the first 2 Omicron cases in the latest genome sequencing. One of them is a 48-year-old returning Filipino from Japan on board Philippine Airlines flight number 0427. He arrived on December 5th and tested positive on December 7. He is currently asymptomatic but initially had coughs and cold upon arrival. The second case is a 37-year-old Nigerian who arrived from Nigeria on November 30 via Oman Air flight number WY843. He also tested positive on December 7th and has no symptoms. Both are in an isolation facility. Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres says one of them is fully vaccinated while the other is unvaccinated. Health and quarantine officials are verifying the test results and health status of all their co-passengers and checking if any one of them showed COVID symptoms after arrival. Health officials are again asking those on board these flights to call their hotline.
To do back tracing kung meron na yung mga kasama sa eroplano, yung 4x4x4 na mga nakatabi ay dapat ay matukoy. The DOH, the Epidemiology Bureau, the regional surveillance unit officers, the BOQ, the DOTR, they're all on track in doing what needs to be done.
Health Secretary Francisco Duque says Omicron reaching our borders is a cause for alarm but not surprising at all. They've been expecting and preparing for this. The Secretary says what's important at this point is to work double time in contact tracing, boost vaccinations, and prepare hospitals and quarantine facilities. And as one health official said on Monday, hopefully the country will be better in handling Omicron this time compared to when we faced the Delta variant. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
The health department reporting 237 new COVID-19 infections today. 100 more people died. 565 have recovered. Active cases dropped to over 10,000, excluding data from 7 laboratories. 8 more areas have been placed in the red list, or countries and territories that are at high risk for COVID-19 infection. Acting presidential spokesperson Carlo Nograles says travelers from Andorra, Monaco, the Northern Mariana Islands, Reunion, and San Marino will be prohibited from entering the Philippines from December 16 to 31. He adds France, South Africa, and Switzerland will remain on the red list until year end. Meanwhile, Health Secretary Francisco Duque says the country will remain under Alert Level 2 for the rest of the year. Alert Level 2 will ensure restrictions are still in place to prevent the spread of Omicron. Now, as Simbang Gabi begins tomorrow, the palace advises churchgoers to observe minimum health protocols. It also suggests to attend virtual masses instead. As we observe the Overseas Filipino Workers Month, returning OFWs decry their poor state in some quarantine facilities in Metro Manila. Almost 2 years since the pandemic began, some think the government is still mismanaging the situation. Our George Gilas has that story.
Jose, an overseas Filipino worker who requested anonymity, is currently quarantined in this cramped hotel room. The space is so small that he is having a hard time opening his large suitcase. While it has its own bathroom, Jose says the hotel has no water supply at times. There are dozens of OFWs who are dealing with similar issues.
Hindi siya conducive for a long term. That means 5 to 7 days quarantine without going out, without exercise. Then all you have to do here is stand and then lie down to sleep. Yun lang magagawa mo dito.
With the influx of returning OFWs this holiday season, Jose thinks the government is mismanaging the situation, and OFWs are the ones getting the short end of the stick.
They should experience it by themselves para makita nila yung katotohanan ng reklamo namin.
Acknowledging the lack of quarantine facilities, the government says it will reopen quarantine facilities for OFWs in nearby regions of Metro Manila.
We have the peripheral isolation and quarantine facilities in 4A and also in Region 3. So we are now expanding the use of what used to be empty TTMFs. We are in constant communication with OWA.
The government has also shortened the quarantine period for vaccinated OFWs coming from countries in the green list. While they're still required to undergo facility-based quarantine, their RT-PCR test will be carried out on the 3rd day. They will be allowed to go home if they test negative, but they need to continue their quarantine at home until they finish the 10-day period.
Mas mabilis na yung magiging turnover ng incoming and outgoing sa mga facilities without sacrificing yung health and safety ng lahat.
As far as complaints about quarantine facilities are concerned, Malacanang says the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, has promised to fix the issues. CNN Philippines tried to reach OWA, but it has yet to respond to our request for interview. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
The second round of the national vaccination drive kicked off in Nueva Ecija today. The full story from Tristan Nodalo.
The government is optimistic that it will meet its target to vaccinate 7 million Filipinos in its second Bayanihan Bakunahan drive nationwide. This amid the challenges brought by Typhoon Odette and amid hesitancy and vaccine preference among Filipinos. Officials of the National Task Force Against COVID-19 check on the mass vaccination drive in Cabanatuan City in Nueva Ecija. The local government targets to inoculate 20,000 people within 3 days in 15 vaccination centers. Health officials say vaccine hesitancy and brand preference remain as challenges. A little over half of the city's 235,000 eligible population have completed 2 doses. People came in trickles in one of the vaccination sites in Cabanatuan, but Health Secretary Francisco Duque remains hopeful that more people will get the shot.
We cannot stop. The demand generation is very, very important. And I think they're very innovative. The LGU, I think, will already embark on a house-to-house vaccination, especially of the elderly, the most vulnerable sector.
As vaccine stock increases, Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez is shifting focus in making sure supply is properly managed. The concern is now on having enough storage facility and avoid wastage.
Ang dami na dumadating na bakuna, talagang iniiwasan namin talaga yung tinatawag natin na wastage. That's why ang ginagawa natin is we are requesting na yung darating dito, higher ang tinatawag natin na yung higher months or tinatawag natin mas longer ang kanyang shelf life. Katulad ng Janssen na dumating ngayon, ang shelf life niya is 2003 pa. Yung strategy natin na first in, first out, kung sino yung unang dumating at saka una yung expiry date, yun ang una muna natin inuubos.
Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez says that there is a contingency plan in areas that may be on path of Typhoon Odette. He says there should be enough power generators and safe storage facilities in order to protect the COVID-19 vaccines. In Cabanatuan City, Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Coming up on Newsnight, Typhoon Odette moves closer to land. We give you the latest on its track and the areas under storm signals. Plus, groups collect thousands of signatures supporting a motion to remove Bongbong Marcos from the 2022 presidential race. More when we return.
For my babies, only vet-approved Nutri-Chunks puppies. The only one with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat with essential nutrients to help them grow strong and healthy. Happiness! Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks puppies.
Welcome back to Newsnight. A check on the weather now. More areas under signal number 2 as Typhoon Odette further intensifies. The Weather Bureau Pag-asa says Odette was last spotted nearly 500 kilometers east of Hinatuan in Surigao del Sur. It'll continue to gain strength tonight until tomorrow, when it is expected to hit land in Caraga or eastern Visayas in the afternoon or evening. The typhoon will then cross over a number of provinces in central and western Visayas. Signal number 2 up over southern portions of eastern Samar, southern Leyte, central and southern parts of Leyte, as well as the Camiguin and the Surigao and Agusan provinces. Damaging winds and heavy rains expected there in the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, signal number 1 raised in over 35 areas. These include Catanduanes, Camarines Sur, Albay, Sorsogon, and portions of the Mindoro provinces. Same goes for Cebu, the Negros provinces, Iloilo, Antique, Capiz, and Aklan. In Mindanao, parts of Davao, Bukidnon, and the Lanao and Zamboanga provinces are under signal number 1. Local governments, meantime, in Odette's path preparing for its impact. Tacloban City in Leyte is suspending work in government offices today. People in low-lying and coastal areas also ordered to evacuate. Work and classes for public and private sectors suspended tomorrow in Samar, eastern and northern Samar, and southern Leyte, and until Friday in Giwan and Giporlos towns in eastern Samar. Local governments preparing food packs. The Western Visayas Coast Guard canceling all trips from the Iloilo, Bacolod, and Guimaras ports this morning. Officials appeal to fishermen not to go out to sea as the typhoon nears. In Valencia City, Bukidnon, evacuation plans in place for people living in high-risk areas as well as rescue equipment. Philippine Airlines canceling some domestic and international flights because of Odette. Among the affected trips tomorrow, Manila to Butuan, Tacloban, and Siargao, and vice versa, as well as Cagayan de Oro and Davao to Cebu. PAL's San Francisco to Manila flight also canceled. Civil society groups submit to the Commission on Elections a letter with over 15,000 signatures supporting the first of multiple petitions to cancel Bongbong Marcos' presidential bid. These signatures were gathered through change.org. Meanwhile, the COMELEC raffled off 166 slots in the 2022 ballot to determine the order of listing for party list names. The official list of 2022 candidates was not released today as initially scheduled. COMELEC says it still has to resolve some cases against nuisance bets. We have more stories ahead. In sports, Golden State's Warrior Stephen Curry has just become the greatest three-point shooter in NBA history. Details next. Stay tuned. Stephen Curry's new record-breaking feat puts him alongside the NBA great. Steph Curry surpassed Ray Allen for most career triples made after making his 2,974 three-pointer. Allen posted about passing the torch to the Warriors' sharpshooting guard, congratulating him on the achievement. Curry managed to set the record in just 789 games, 511 less than it took Allen. And back here at home, basketball fans get to see their first PBA game in person after almost 2 years. Pauline Versosa tells us more.
It's a festive welcome for the PBA and its fans here at the Big Dome as they finally make their return after nearly 2 years. Now, this reunion of sorts is courtesy of the Quezon City local government, provided that strict health protocols will be observed. Only fully vaccinated fans aged 12 and above will be permitted. Upon entry, they must present their vaccination cards together with a government-issued ID and QC pass. Inside the venue, fans must still wear face masks at all times, while eating is allowed only at the venue's concessionaires. Now, it was way back in March 2020 when fans last saw their favorite players live in action, and now they can finally see their idols like Paul Lee, Calvin Abueva, and Jason Castro up close.
Sobrang excited po ma'am, galing po ako ng Cavite, pumunta pa po ako dito para manood. Iba ang feelings ma'am kasi excited. Alas 10 pa lang nandito na ako ma'am, nag-aabang na po ako para bumili ng ticket.
Excited po kasi po first time po namin manonood ngayon eh.
Medyo hindi na rin po nakaka-excite na nasa TV lang, mas maganda talaga yung nasa live, lalo na yung mga hiyawan ng mga tao.
The arena management is limiting the crowd to 4,000 out of a seating capacity of 16,000. As a Christmas treat, the PBA is also cutting ticket prices by almost half. Fans grabbing this opportunity bought tickets ahead of this week's games.
Susulitin nyo na po kasi token expand ako eh.
Mas maganda, nagbaba para hindi naman agad-agad eh.
The PBA also gets a green light to hold games with live fans at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay City. But due to the venue's packed schedule, the league eyes to make its return in the arena in January. Pauline Versosa, CNN Philippines.
If you're looking to start the new year with new appliances more than the price, you should also check the energy labels. The DOE's energy labeling program can help you choose energy-efficient appliances that are sure to help you save more in the long run. That's coming your way shortly. It is 10 days before Christmas. That is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DX General Santos. DX General Santos. Una sa balita. Musika o kalingawan. Mas tulong pinalakas. Radyo.
Mga balita sa Kapitolyo sa Sarangani.
79 kamakaning rebelde sa Sarangani Province nakadawat og hapit 1.6 million ka pesos cash isip livelihood settlement grant gikan sa DSWD. Tag 20 mil ka pesos matag usa. Gitagaan pa ni Governor Solon og tag usa ka libo ka pesos isip pahalipay ang nabakunahan batok COVID-19. Tumang kalipay sa 79 kabuk mga kaning rebelde sa probinsya sa Sarangani, gumikan na dawat nila ang cash nga 20 mil ka pesos matag usa gikan sa DSWD Region 12 obo sa programa nga Livelihood Settlement Grant. Magamit kini nga pondo sa ilang panginabuhian. Nikabat sa halos 1.6 milyones ka pesos ang kinatibuk ang pondo nga gitunol sa DSWD. Wala pay apil dinhi ang ayuda gikan sa DILG, LGU, TESDA, DPWH o uban pang ahensya sa gobyerno o pribadong sektor. Natigayon ang simpleng seremonyas baguhay lang sulod sa Sarangani Capital Gymnasium kung din sila Governor Steve Chongbian Solon o DSWD 12 Sustainable Livelihood Program Coordinator Edgar Guerra ang personal ng apod-apod sa salapi. Anaapod ang hugot Hugot nga suporta o presensya nila 1002nd Brigade Commander Brigadier General Potenciano Camba, 73rd IB Commander Lieutenant Colonel Antonio Quimado Jr., Major Welbin Beda sa 38 IB, Lieutenant Colonel Lorenzo Henares III sa Sarangani Provincial Police Office, Mr. Ian John Clemente sa DILG 12, Sarangani DILG Provincial Director Engineer Samuel Kamaganakan ug Assistant PSWDO Officer Edith Mahilom. Nadugangan pa ang kalipahuman nga ng hatag og tag-1,000 ka pesos si Governor Solon sa kada kaning rebelde nga nabakunahan batok COVID-19 isip pahalipay, samtang 500 ka pesos ang gihatag kada usa sa kadtong mopadulong pa lang sa pagpabakuna. Butyag ni Focal Person Lizette Lopez ilalom sa opisina ni PSWDO Officer Raquel Panal nga ang mong 79 former rebels ang nahimong kwalipikado sa programa sa DSWD human na no-render gikan tuig 2016 pinasubay sa guidelines sa ELCAC Whole of Nation Approach Program ni Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Walay hunong si Governor Solon kauban sila Vice Governor Elmer D. Peralta, mga board member, maabtikong mayores, og sila Senador Manny o Congressman Roel Pacquiao sa pagpadangat og mga kaayuhan sa kabukiran sa bendisyon sa Ginoo. Giorganisa pod sa gobernador ang mga kaning rebelde aron hiniusa silang matabangan sa panginabuhian og trabaho. Gani dugay nang adunay provincial federation sa mga municipal association sa rebel returnees ang Sarangani Province. Mapasalamaton si Governor Solon nga ato lang Nobyembre nakaukay og mga armas ang mga kasundaluhan sa tago nga lugar sa bukirang bahin sa Malapatan. 31 kabuk high-powered firearms ang nakubkuban. Gilang kuban sa M16 rifle, M14 rifle, AK-47, M203 grenade launcher o .30 caliber machine gun. Joint Forces sa 1002nd Brigade Philippine Army. Kuyog si Colonel Ted Dumosmog, 73rd IB o 39th IB ang nakadiskobre sa mga tinagong armas. Ang mga armas ang gipresenta ngadto kang Major General Ernesto Torres Jr. labaw sa 10th Infantry Division pinaagi sa naitabo nga press conference o demilitarization ceremony. Usa sa nakadawat sa 20,000 ka pesos taga maasim ang mapasalamato na lamang sa iyang kahimtang. Maayo na matud pa karon ang iyang pagpuyo kauban ang iyang pamilya. Nitahan siya tuig 2019 gikan sa iyang pagsulod sa kalihukan tuig 2013. Ni surrender siya atong panahona at tubangan mismo ni Governor Solon. Dia ang usa sa mga kanhing rebelde.
Actually, yung pagbaba ko dito sa gobyerno, maging Baliklobo, dito ko magbaba sa office ni Governor Esteve Solon. Yun, nandito ako. Iba talaga yung narinig ko dun sa kabila ng grupo. Ang sabi nila, pag bumaba ka, binubugbog ka talaga ng mga EFT. Pero pag nandito na, wala talaga, hindi totoo. Yung sinasabi na sa amin, pag bumaba na ako dito, una-una po ay malaki po ang pagpasalamat ko kay Honorable Governor Esteve Solon, yung sa yung pag-ano sa amin, lahat ng mga FR dito sa Sarangani.
Mga balita sa Kapitolyo sa Sarangani.
Gikan sa Tuna Capital of the Philippines, General Santos. Nagsibya sa gikusgon ni 5,000 watts. Kini ang sibyaanan sa RPN. RPN, Radio Philippines Network. Radio Philippines Network. DX 693 kHz. Ang inyong Radyo Ronda sa syudad sa mga kampeon. Live to the world pinaagi sa FB page karon. Mag-download na pinaagi sa Google Play ug Apple Store, YouTube ug Twitter. Alang sa mas ipakuskan nga mga balita, komentaryo, kasayuran ug kalingawan. DX size 93 ang mas ipakuskan nga inyong Radyo Ronda.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Around 15 million people worldwide suffer from stroke each year. Some of the more common risk factors are diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease. But recent studies have found that COVID-19 may increase the likelihood of it as well. Experts say strokes can occur in COVID-19 patients under the age of 50 with mild or no symptoms. But understanding the warning signs, its risk factors, and the treatments can make a huge difference. On the program today, we'll talk more about COVID-19 and stroke. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. This is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Experts are warning that COVID-19 may increase the risk of stroke in certain groups. Our guests are here to tell us more about this. With us is Dr. Epifania Collantes. She's a stroke neurologist from the Philippine General Hospital and Manila Doctors Hospital. Also with us is Dr. Ethel Anunuevo. She's a pulmonologist from the Asian Hospital and Medical Center. Now, it is said that strokes are the second leading cause of death among Filipinos and one of the top 5 leading causes of disability. I'll start first with Dr. Epi. Ano ba yung stroke? Why does it happen?
A stroke is a brain attack, so there's usually sudden weakness or numbness in some parts of the body, and the main cause is an abnormal blood vessel. So it can be hemorrhagic or cerebral infarction. So those are the 2 types of stroke. Cerebral infarction, meaning there's a blockage in the blood flow, depriving certain cells of the brain with oxygen, damaging the cells of the brain, and hemorrhagic because of the rupture of blood vessels.
Now, because of the nature of strokes, time is of the essence. Napaka-importante na makakita sila ng treatment agad. And the earlier you recognize the warning signs, the sooner you can get the help needed. Dr. Epi, let's go through the symptoms, the common symptoms kapag someone is undergoing a stroke.
So remember the acronym BFAST. B, if there's sudden loss of balance. E, means sudden blindness or sudden doubling of vision. F means look at the face. Is there asymmetry, facial asymmetry? Then look at the arm. Is there weakness of one part of the body? And then S for speech. Is there slurring of speech? And then T is time. Note the time, and it's time to rush the patient to the hospital. So the acronym is BFAST.
Okay, so be fast, and early detection of these symptoms is vital in preventing permanent damage. Yun ang ayaw natin. So remember to be fast. Dr. Ethel, let's talk about this one. How can COVID-19, which primarily affects the lungs, how can this be a risk factor for stroke?
Of course, the primary manifestation would be the lungs. Pero there are case series, ibig sabihin po, these are researches that were published, na nag-show na affected din talaga yung brain, the heart, and other parts of the body. I think what the main mechanism would be several things. One is hypercoagulable. Ito po yung nagiging malapot yung dugo ng mga pasyente natin with COVID, and be it mild and most especially the more critical patients, nagiging malapot po yung dugo nila. And what is the mechanism behind that? It could be because mataas yung tinatawag nating mga cytokines, no? Ito po yung cytokine storms. Pero pag nagsa-cytokine storm ng mga pasyente, may symptoms na po sa lungs, no? Hirap huminga, bumabagsak yung oxygen. And if we look at blood tests, nakikita na din natin doon na tumataas siya. One mechanism po yun, hypercoagulable state. There are also postulates na merong direct effect yung virus to the blood vessels, promoting thrombosis or pagbabara ng mga ugat, no, anywhere in the body, and clinically siguro sa heart at saka sa brain. Yun yung sinasabi nila na most probable postulate sa mga pasyente na mild naman, hindi sila nag-cytokine storm, pero nagkakaroon sila ng stroke. But correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Epi, but in case reports, the incidence of stroke, no, and most especially siguro yung ischemic stroke in patients with COVID-19 is variable but not too high compared to the general population na walang COVID. So parang sinasabi nila between 1 to 6% lang in case series. Again, all the data will be coming out siguro anytime soon, no? Kasi yung mga reports nila would be in the 2020 experience pa lang.
Itong mga symptoms na to, itong mga factors, normally seen with those with moderate to severe COVID can lead or mag-i-increase ang chance ang magka-heart attack or stroke. Now, Dr. Ethel, let's remind our viewers again about the symptoms ng moderate to severe COVID-19 para aware sila because this is where that risk for having a stroke increases.
Alam naman po natin, the symptoms of COVID can be very non-specific. Para lang siyang trangkaso po, no? Lagnat, sinisipon, masakit ang katawan, inuubo. Non-specific, any viral infection can have this. Pero po, pag meron kayong exposure to somebody known to have COVID, alam na natin, increase yung likelihood na COVID yan. The other symptoms would be pag nawala po yung pang-amoy or panglasa, mas mataas yung chance na these are from COVID infection rather than from the other infections in the respiratory system. So siguro, it's more of a clinical suspicion na mag-i-increase yung likelihood. But remember po, no, may magagawa po tayo the first 5 days of symptoms. Beyond the 5 days, yun na po yung papasok yung inflammatory phase. So gusto natin ngayon with the provision of all these antivirals already in the Philippines, no? Dumarating na po sila, I think ngayong November, lalabas na yung Molnupiravir. No? So all these things po dapat i-address natin yung viral phase or the acute viral phase. Huwag na nating hintayin yung inflammatory phase. So I think suspicion, we need to have a clinical suspicion. Tingnan natin, meron ba tayong nakahalubilo with COVID and kung meron bang nawala ng pang-amoy or panglasa, high likelihood po yun talaga ng COVID. The others are non-specific.
There has also been occurrences of strokes in COVID-19 patients as young as 30 years old and with mild to no symptoms. Why does this happen? More on this when we return. Stay with us on MedTalk Health Talk only on CNN Philippines.
It's the KCC and Veranza Big Christmas Sale. Shopping na from your favorite brands and essentials. Sa KCC and Veranza from December 16 to 19. Don't miss the chance and get up to 70% discount on great finds. Save the date at ihanda na ang iyong Christmas shopping list. KCC and Veranza Big Christmas Sale.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and
broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Mas tulong lakas, Radyo Ronda Nationwide.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines, where caring is our calling. COVID-19 usually attacks the lungs, causing symptoms such as coughing and difficulty breathing. But experts are now starting to worry about another organ, the brain. Even with mild symptoms, many people as young as 30 are experiencing stroke or stroke-like symptoms. Dr. Epi, let's first discuss who are most at risk nito.
Those who are hypertensive, diabetic, who are smoker, who have irregular heartbeat, no, and who are drinking a lot of alcohol with substance abuse, like maybe shabu or ecstasy, those with your high cholesterol levels and are obese.
So, itong mga risk factors na ito, Dr. Epi, as long as they are present, it doesn't really matter how young or how old you are, no? You are still at risk of having a stroke if you have COVID-19 as well.
For COVID-19, we did a study on this. More than 2,000 COVID-positive patients at UPPGH. 3% had stroke, and the mean age was 59, plus minus 14. So younger age, but they had other risk factors like hypertension. But even those with mild COVID, they had also stroke.
Now, people living with multiple risk factors have greater cause for concern if infected with COVID-19. But as we mentioned, there have also been accounts of patients with mild to no symptoms who have experienced strokes. Dr. Epi, what do we know about this naman so far? Yung mga mild to moderate symptoms lang with COVID-19 but still nagkakaroon sila ng symptoms ng stroke.
Yeah. So even those without really hypertensive young patients, because there's increased viscosity, malapot yung dugo, it can cause thrombosis or blood clot in the arteries and veins. So this increases the risk for stroke because of that thrombosis.
Let's talk a little bit about the link between COVID-19 and that of stroke, because stroke typically results from, as mentioned, blood clots. This is one of the symptoms as well as of severe COVID-19, as mentioned earlier, yung hypercoagulable state. Dr. Ethel, can you explain that link between COVID-19 and that of these blood clots that may put someone at risk of having a stroke?
So as we all know, yung COVID po, hindi lang nakaka-apekto ng respiratory system from the nose to the lungs, but also have been found out to affect the blood vessels. And in so many different ways po. Kung mayroong cytokine storms, this is the inflammatory phase. The fact na namamaga yung buong system natin, the blood vessels are namamaga. No? Lahat po ito are all contributory para magkakaroon ng clotting factor. Also, tumataas kasi yung isang biomarker, what we call D-dimer. In most studies, kahit na actually nakikita po namin to sa mga sa mga patients na at least the moderate to the more critical, tumataas talaga yung D-dimer nila. Inflammation marker po siya, but at the same time marker for hypercoagulable state. So number one, po yun, theory na yun ang dahilan kung bakit there is a connection between COVID and stroke. But the other one is a direct effect. So ito nga po yung sinasabi natin na baka ito yung mechanism behind mild COVID patients na they didn't have symptoms at all na respiratory. Hindi sila nadadala sa ospital until they manifest with certain things like stroke po.
Now, we're aware that the loss of smell and taste, headaches, fatigue, and brain fog are some of the symptoms na pwedeng maramdaman ng isang taong positive ng COVID-19. This has led some experts to believe that the disease may cause some neurological problems because of this. Dr. Ethel, meron din bang connection kapag merong simptomas na ganito na nakita sa isang pasyente?
Ang affectation kasi sa nose and sa taste, so sa tongue, is actually not directly affecting the nerves. Pero namamaga po yung mga cells, surrounding that blood, that nerve ending, that may supply yung sense natin ng taste and smell, namamaga sila, and that is the direct viral effect, no? Kasi yun po yung una talaga, nose and throat, no? So whether it affects the nerve itself, hindi natin talaga alam. What we know is apektado yung gilid. So namamaga po yung gilid na kung saan nag-enter yung mga nerve endings natin. What about the brain? There are reports of pathologic examination of the brain wherein they saw viral parts, no? So ibig sabihin po nun, siguro meron ding invasion of the virus to the brain. But most ang talagang nare-report is really the cytokine storm or pagmamaga or inflammatory phase na nakaka-cause ng lahat ng ganitong mga simptomas.
I'd like to ask, for those viewers who by now probably think na baka nag-worry sila, they might have to take a blood test or something like that, especially whenever they're positive also with COVID-19. Is it practical to include in a blood test their D-dimer even though they don't feel any symptoms? Maybe they might think that this could be a marker for a possible risk factor for stroke. Is it practical to do that?
You are right. So once a patient has symptoms and admitted in a hospital, there are panel of tests, and one of the tests is D-dimer, which has a prognostic significance. An increase of that will increase the risk for stroke and other maybe cardiovascular events also, not only stroke.
Now, what are the best ways to manage and monitor COVID-19 related strokes? We'll discuss that after a short break. Your health is our mission here on MedTalk Health Talk. You're watching CNN Philippines. Here on MedTalk Health Talk, you're watching CNN Philippines.
Pamilya protektado sa Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
This is CNN Philippines.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and this is MedTalk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. Strokes can happen without warning and can result in severe and even permanent damage. Again, understanding the warning signs and getting timely treatment can make all the difference. Remember to be fast. Balance eyes, face, arms, speech, and time. Dr. Epi, how are strokes usually diagnosed kapag dinala na sa hospital ang pasyente?
So when you go to the hospital, CT scan is immediately done after assessment. So we'll differentiate bleed between bleed and infarction. So in other hospitals, they use the MRI.
So when it comes to stroke, Dr. Epi, a lot of people still may be wary into going to the hospital. Baka COVID hotspot ito, baka mahawa sila ng COVID if they're not. Should this be one of their worries, or is stroke such a serious condition that dapat dalhin na kagad sa hospital?
Dapat dalhin kagad sa hospital because it's reversible. No, so kung hindi ma-reverse, there's great disability. No, so dalhin kagad sa hospital even in the times of COVID kasi may health protocols naman. No, so na fina-follow. So kaya careful yung mga doctors, no? And then you will be screened also there in the ER.
Dapat dalhin sa hospital. Now, speaking of the treatment for that and it being reversible, once diagnosed, Dr. Epi, the neurologist we can administer treatment right away. Tell us more about this. What type of treatment is administered and how reversible is it? Pwede bang bumalik ng 100% ang pasyente?
Yes, pwedeng bumalik 100%. Like if there's a blockage in the blood flow, there's a clot buster, RTPA, being given within less than 4.5 hours. Yun ang golden time to save the cells of the brain. If it is given immediately, nag-open up yung blood vessel, the oxygen flows again, saving the brain. So yun yung, pwede yun. Kung bleed naman to, pwedeng i-control din yung hypertension. So diretso ka agad sa ospital dapat.
Now, Dr. Ethel, does the treatment change for stroke kapag yung stroke ay caused by COVID-19?
Okay, there's no difference. There's no difference except that there are health protocols that has to be takot lang talaga tayo sa COVID and then the occurrence of stroke. But from what I've known and from what I've seen in most of my patients na merong stroke, hindi po nagbabago yung management. If this is a bleed or a big infarct, kailangan i-manage yung hypertension, kailangan i-manage yung hydration. So dapat well-hydrated or hydrated enough yung mga pasyente para ma-maintain yung good blood flow and good blood pressure. So ang isang problema kasi natin po sa COVID, mababa talaga yung mga oxygen ng mga pasyente. It's severe and critical. So we're trying to make sure that na nare-reach natin at least more than 90% O2 saturation para po yung enough yung oxygen na pupunta sa brain. Again, it's not just stroke that is causing the changes in the brain. The hypoxemia, yung mababang oxygen po, eventually naapektuhan yung brain natin.
Okay. Now today, a lot of us have been hearing about long COVID. Dr. Ethel, is the risk still high after COVID-19 recovery? Madalas ba natin nakikita itong mga long COVID o itong mga simptomas well after the patient has become better?
Yes po. In my clinical experience, up to 1 year, meron pa din sila mga simptomas and varied, no? From head to foot po talaga yung mga post-COVID. Kaya hindi pa rin baliwalain talaga yung COVID. Hindi siya ordinaryong infection. Kahit na magaling na po kayo, binabantayan pa din po namin kayo.
Ultimately though, strokes can be treated kapag naagapan ito, and you should never delay getting the care that you need. And before we go, Dr. Epi, could you give our viewers a few more tips about how they can prevent strokes?
Yeah, get a healthy lifestyle, like do exercises, daily exercise, healthy lifestyle, healthy habits, eating habits. Stay away from fast food, stop smoking, limitation in the alcohol intake, like if you need to drink 2 bottles of beer will be enough, not more than that. Get enough sleep and lessen your stress.
And Dr. Ethel, any tips para maganda ang lungs at healthy ito for the long run?
Unfortunately, there are no perfect medication to protect the lungs. I think the only way to protect the lungs from infection is our health protocols. Yung mag-wear ng mask, kung merong mga pasyente, kung inuubo po kayo, protect the community by covering your mouth. No? You need to eat healthy, you need to exercise the same way as yung sinabi ni Dr. Epi sa atin. It will be also the advice, no, to keep your lungs healthy. And stop smoking po, no, if you are smoking.
So with that, I'd like to thank urologist Dr. Epifania Collantes and pulmonologist Dr. Ethel Anunuevo for sharing with us your expertise and your insights. The more we know about COVID-19 and its complications, the better for our health. So marami pong salamat sa inyong dalawa. I'm Dr. Freddy